Welcome back to part 2 of mining. Right now we're going to have a look at the different mining methods. There are 3 that we're going to be looking at. There is pit mining, strip mining, and shaft or underground mining. Most mines are located in remote areas. But if the ore body is near the surface, the mining company may choose to strip or pit mine. If it's further underground, they're going to use underground or shaft mining. But you have to remember, this is the most difficult, dangerous, and expensive method of mining. So if they're going to do underground mining, it's going to be a very large ore body, and it's going to be worth a lot of money. We're going to have a look at strip mining first. So I'm going to bring all of the notes up here so that I can get to the image, so that makes it a little bit easier. So just give me a moment. Okay, so strip mining is used to mine minerals like coal and oil sands that develop in horizontal layers near the surface of the earth. So here the orientation of the ore body is horizontal and it's near the surface of the earth, so less than 300 meters down. The overburden is the stuff that is on top of the ore body, so that all gets pulled out of the way, and then the ore is simply shoveled onto conveyor belts or trucks, and it is sent up and out for processing. Now you can't just drive up a hill like this, so if you take a look at this image here, what they do is as they go down, they leave graduated steps that become the road for the trucks. So the truck will drive along here and then around the other side, and then comes up another layer and around again. And some of these can get so deep that it will take all day for a truck to go from the bottom to the top. Now then there's pit mining. Now pit mining is similar to strip mining, except now the ore body is oriented vertically. All right, so at this point you're dealing with a much narrower area, and so they still have to remove the overburden, but because they have to kind of dig down rather than just be able to scoop it up, they have to use explosives to blast apart the ore. Then everything again just gets trucked out, and again they do that whole thing where they have to go round and round and round. Finally, we have underground or shaft mining. So this is used to get at ore that is deep in the earth. And please remember, it's got to be a big ore body, otherwise it's simply not worth the money. So the shaft is drilled into the earth at the edge of the ore body. So hang on, I'm going to just get to the point where I've got my image. So here's your ore body, and it's far underground. And so remember when we talked about core samples, the scientists or the geologists already know where the edges are because they drilled core samples. So they'd sink a core sample here and another one here and another one here until they got to the edge. And so they know where all the edges are. So they'll sink the shaft at the edge. It makes no sense to put it in the middle, because then they're going to waste all that ore when they try to dig the shaft. Now what they're going to do at that point is, once they're in here, they're going to dig horizontally this way, and the tunnels that they create are called adits or drifts. It's an adit if it goes this way, and it's a drift if it goes this way. Okay, so if it connects two adits, it's called a drift. Anyway, at the end of the adit, they're going to be digging, right? And so the little chamber that they're digging in is called the stope. Now, the rock in the stope is blasted apart with explosives, and they explode, or they put these explosives on the front so they can move forward, but also to some degree on the ceiling. And when they explode it, of course, everything, all the debris falls in, and that debris is called muck. The muck is then picked up or pushed by kind of a bobcat type of thing, and it is pushed into something called an ore pass, and it falls down this tube into something called a crusher. As the name implies, the crusher crushes the ore into smaller pieces. Then it is funneled down into another ore pass, into a skip, and the skip hoists it to the surface where it's sent for processing. So this is the diagram that you've got on your notes, and so all of these, what I've put on there, I think they are text boxes, so you can just fill this information in. So here's your head frame. Here's your shaft right in here. Okay, so pardon me, I had drift and adit mixed up. I apologize. The drift is the one that goes this way. The adit will connect two drifts. So the drift ends in a stope, and when this gets blasted and you leave a pile, then that's called the muck. The muck then gets pushed down the drift into the ore pass, falls down the ore pass into the crusher. The crusher, you can see it's got a blade in there, and this will make it into much smaller, much more easily used or transported size lumps. Back in the day, when mining first started, there was a job that a man had to do, and this was the most money you could make as a miner. But sometimes some of the lumps that would come through here would be too big, and it would jam up this crusher. And so there was a man who had a little like office thing over here, and he had a whole bunch of explosives in it. And his job was to go out into here, because now this thing isn't moving, plant some explosives, go back into his little room, blow the thing apart so that this could move again. Now here's the reason he got paid so much. They didn't shut this off. So it was still trying to move. Oops. And if it defeated the, sorry about that, if it overcame the resistance, it would start moving very quickly. So this guy didn't have a very long life expectancy, less than 2 months. So the guys would take it, if they were desperate for money, they would take on the job of the crusher for about a month. But then after that, they would get pretty scared. Nowadays, it's all done automatically, and no more people have to go in there. So the ore comes through the crusher into the loading pocket. The loading pocket then fills or funnels into the skip, and the skip carries the ore up here, where it's either put onto a conveyor belt, which will take it to a processor, or it gets put onto train cars or trucks. Okay, so now we have to process the minerals. Metallic mineral ore needs to be purified before it's useful. Milling is a physical procedure that separates the mineral from the majority of the waste. Most of the time you can see what it is you're looking for, especially with the metallic ones. You then take the milled stuff and you smelt it. So what smelting does is it heats the remainder, like the milled stuff gets all heated up until the compounds separate. So the metallic stuff will melt. That will sink to the bottom because that tends to be the heaviest stuff. And then there's a little spigot at the bottom of the furnace, and the tap gets opened up, and they've got these grooves that are dug into the floor itself, and all of this liquid metal flows out and drains off, and then they let it cool, and then they pull it out from there. But that means that there's a lot of the ore that is not used. It's not useful stuff. And that's the waste material that's produced by the mills and the smelters, and that's called tailings. The tailings from a smelter are worse than the tailings from a mill. From the mill, it's because it's a physical separation. There's no chemicals that have been added to it. There's no heat that's been added to it. So it's just basically a big pile. It looks ugly, but it's not dangerous. The stuff that comes out of smelters is hot. It is, because the heat will have changed some of the compounds, some of it can become quite dangerous, and so they put all of this stuff into ponds to cool. So they build ponds called tailing ponds, and they drain the tailings into there. They let it cool, let the bad stuff sink to the bottom, and then they siphon off the whatever they can into, usually into the water system. So the tailings are often toxic, ugly, or otherwise difficult to deal with. A huge issue facing the mining industry today is how to safely get rid of the tailings. So I want you to think, or maybe do a little bit of research on the internet. I don't want you to do anything major. I just want you to write down 3 or 4 of the issues that the mining industry is having to face. And we're going to deal with that more specifically later on. All right, and that's it for your notes on the introduction to mining. Very shortly, I will be putting up, probably not until tomorrow, but I will be putting up some questions from the textbook, and so you can expect that you're going to have to download some of the scanned pages from the textbook as well. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day. Try to get out for a walk, stay healthy, and hopefully I will see you all again soon.